all our regulars. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Anasa. I'm so happy to be back. Missed you guys totally while we were gone. It's kind of part of our rhythm, and it was very strange not to have it. So we definitely felt your absence. So how's everybody been? What's happening? How's the inner work? But let's go to meditation first, so we're all sort of on the same page. So we have yet another meditation to bring to you this morning. And this one is really about aiming for a no thought state. And so the way we do it is the first thing you do is take your attention to the tip of your nose. You look at the tip of your nose with your eyes. And as you do that, you follow that axis from the tip of your nose through your eyes and up to the third eye. And you will notice as you do this that there's a magnetic feel to the location of the third eye. It kind of draws your attention. And so allow that to happen, but still leave your eyes soft and slightly open and slightly pointed, not with effort, but pointed toward the nose. So they're a little bit crossed, which helps to not really take in anything but the light through the slit of the eyes that's open. So you want to inhale that light up into the third eye. And as a thought begins to assert itself, you take your attention between that thought and the next one. And you feel into that space. You drop your awareness into that space as you hold your attention on the tip of the nose, allowing the light to come in. And whatever your body does in response to that as it gets used to it, it's totally fine. Don't judge it or try to shut anything down or hold to a particular thing that you feel might be more right and following these directions than what's happening. For example, Rebecca's eyes are kind of fluttering a bit as she gets used to this new form of attention. And that's totally fine. Allow your beingness to do whatever it requires to come into the calm of this meditation. So you're feeling into your third eye, holding your attention in the axis from the tip of your nose to your third eye, and allowing your eyelids to soften, allowing some light in at the same time as you sort of perceive the tip of your nose. It's more important than you feel it, that you feel into the axis, than you actually see the tip of your nose. Just allow the light in. And now use your breath to breathe all the way down the front of your body into your pelvis, toward the tip of your tailbone, but you can stay in the front of your body and allow that connection to happen. So you're breathing in the light. And then once you're settled in breathing in the light, you allow the exhale to pull in the darkness from below. And that goes out the top of the head. And you breathe in the light down the front, and you exhale the darkness up the back. At your own pace, whatever that is. And as you're comfortable, you can drop yourself into the stillness between the breaths and between the thoughts. And allow that, cultivate that as your inner experience as you are breathing around this circle of light and dark. So the inner feeling of no mind is in between the thoughts and surrounded by the circle of light and dark. And every time there's a thought, just drop yourself into the space before the next thought without paying any attention to what the thought actually is. And we'll just continue this process for a little while to experiment with a no thought state. And it's your choice if you breathe through your nose or your mouth. We prefer mouth breathing at this point because it grounds us. But it's okay if you make a different choice. Wherever you are, one last time, breathe up into the third eye with the light. Allow it to come all the way down the front. Exhale the darkness up the back. And gently take your attention into your heart center. And feel into the gratitude for being here in this time and place. Holding your attention inside, gently begin to open your eyes further. And we welcome any reports or anything else that you want to bring to today's meeting. We're so happy to be here with you. Sorry, we're so quiet and such a low voice this morning. It's just sort of the way we started. Mm. So we did have a big reset going halfway across the world and back. And also met with our homeopath during that period and got a new remedy. So everything sort of shifted at the same time, which is sometimes a good thing because when you pile the shifts on top of each other, then you really go someplace different in yourself. So we're hoping for that. And so far, it seems to be happening. So, how are you folks? What's going on? Yes.
I just wanted to say I really liked that meditation. The flow of the energy was different than I've done before, and I liked it. It was strong. It made me a little dizzy, but but good. It's good. I really needed that. Thank you.
Well, that's funny. We woke up dizzy this morning, so it may be dizzy in the air. You too. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Well, it could also be astrological. We're 2 days before the eclipse, and not only is the eclipse happening, but one thing that's good about the eclipse is that um, we haven't looked yet today, so I can't say this with certainty, but I think that Venus, who is exalted in Pisces, is moving into Pisces. So this is a big positive energy that's offsetting the intensity of the eclipse with Sun, Moon, and Rahu and debilitated Mercury all there. But what Venus does is uh, it forgives the debilitation of Mercury and lifts it up so that our brains aren't quite as muddled as they would be. And it also helps Sun and Moon because an exalted Venus is quite powerful. So that's Venus in its absolute best spot in the horoscope to be Venus, which is the planet of love. So we do have some redemption in this whole eclipse process. But the other thing that's happening close behind the eclipse is that on the 10th, on Wednesday, Mars and Saturn will have moved into planetary war, which means they will be within 1 degree of each other. And that makes for very intense negative energy because Saturn is the planet of obstruction and delay and karma that will be delivered. And Mars is the planet of war. And they are not friendly, and they're both pretty intense. And that will manifest mostly in world events, intensification of the wars that are already happening and the bad feeling that's being expressed in multiple countries toward other countries. And so this is not about to let up in this moment. But personally, it depends on our own chart how this reverberates, but it makes for some intense energy, and it forewarned is forearmed. The rule is if you want to say anything intense to someone, wait a minimum of 12 hours, if not 24, before you do it. Because you just want to be sure that what you say is not based in the current energy, but really something that's truly right for you to say. And so the tincture of time can give us a little bit of space so that we hold that thought before we ruin our lives with it or somebody else's. Or, create a big obstruction in a relationship that we didn't mean to. So the word is caution and wait. Do not do anything important before the 14th or 15th. So this is a time to just be quiet, do our inner work, and forget about the world. And only interactions that we must have and those we can question. We can even say, I'm not feeling well. I'd rather have this conversation on, and pick a day that looks a little better. Anything after the 14th or 15th. So that's our advice for negotiating the next week. Lay low. And only act if you're sure it's in the highest, best interest of the whole. Which means you can take food to people, you can donate to charitable causes, you can, do anything that uplifts. And wish everybody well, because there's nobody who's not going to have a hard time. And we can take that into account when other people are popping off at us. Yes. So we have a pretty limited schedule this week on purpose.
And do our taxes.
Oh,
If we
yeah.
haven't already.
Yeah, that's in there.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes, please.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Thank you for bringing us up on this information about the rough time and all, because I've been having a difficult time. I little situation between my sister and my sister-in-law, where my sister was pretty rude to her, and my sister-in-law called me and said, I don't care if I ever not coming up to Portland again, and to try to keep this all, it's difficult. I've felt kind of put in the middle, but I realize that could be just a habitual thing, and I decided not to. And it's not my stuff to work out. But I was able to have a conversation with her, but I was so in turmoil over it yesterday. And but I was able to say a piece into it that I thought was helpful, and but it was difficult. It was difficult, and I was a bit ruminating this morning before class, and I just went to Grace and just said, I wish her the highest, because I removed myself from any involvement.
Mhm.
And so it was great practice. It felt horrible, but I did it. So I'm so appreciative, because the energies have been so powerful. I've been so triggered. And I remember what you said is just keep quiet.
Yeah.
So I kept that in mind. And but thank you. That was helpful to get that bit of information, which I didn't know about. I think I handle it appropriately, but it took a bit out of me. So anyway, yay.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we can do, when it gets really bad, is say to people that, the energy astrologically is so bad that it's very hard for anybody to behave. And
Yeah,
so we just try to keep ourselves from misbehaving
yeah,
and give everybody else the benefit of the doubt and
yeah,
wait a few days because it will get better.
yeah. Well, that really helped you explaining that. And I believe I did the right thing. And I meditated before I got on
Yeah,
to the
that's
class,
that's always a good idea.
and then bringing the
Yeah.
good juju into this with our new meditation is great. So, yay. I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys are back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's really, really quite nice. And a lot's happening internally for the better, so that is also really good. And understanding, the real understanding of negativity is that it doesn't exactly come because we're bad people and we don't deserve anything. It's that the whole multiverse is in a kind of balance that's beyond our ability to perceive or really account for. And, even having knowledge of our solar system doesn't really give us information about the galactic center, which has a whole other, very, very powerful, but because it moves so slowly, we take everything for granted as part of our beingness. But there are all these forces that we don't have the sensitivity to perceive that have very powerful impacts on us that have nothing to do with us. And that's part of what brings us to the understanding that samsara and nirvana are the same. They're just intense energies. The height of the darkness and the height of the light are the same. And we are subject to patterns that we have no control over and no awareness of. All we can do is be our best self as much of the time as possible. And because we know how much work that is, we can give everybody else the benefit of the doubt. Because for whatever reason, they haven't had the internal or the external opportunities to begin to learn this wisdom. And so we just give them a pass. That doesn't mean that we allow people to harm us or to demean us in any way. But the most important thing is not what anybody else does or thinks about us,
Yeah,
but what we do and think about ourselves. Because we tend to shoot ourselves in the foot because of other people's behavior. And we tend to really make our practice difficult because our reactions to everybody else's reactions tend to be things that we have to work through.
yeah,
And that work is completely valid and extremely important to bring us, to allow us to come into a no thought state so that we can actually be available to higher frequencies. And within those higher frequencies are the feelings that we're truly wishing to cultivate.
Mhm.
You know, we can pretend to be joyful, we can pretend we
Yeah.
understand what love is, but until we're really having that experience from a no thought state within ourselves, we don't really know it. We are fantasizing it, which doesn't negate any of the experiences we've had to date. But as you take in that information, you can probably feel the truth of it.
Mhm.
That what we are training ourselves to experience is something beyond ordinary human perception. And that what we're clearing ourselves out for is that true experience of divine love, of source energy. And as usual, we don't have vocabulary in English to convey these experiences which are beyond three-dimensional reality. And so what we have experienced in 3 dimensions is not wrong. It's just the tip of the iceberg, really, really like a pinhead of the iceberg of what's truly available to a human being who can drop into the depths of the silence.
Thank you. There was a little silver lining with this story. My sister texted me, and we're getting together. It wasn't planned. That my brother passed on 5 years ago today, and she wants us to all spend some time honoring him, which is just a lovely,
Yes.
lovely for her to come up with that. So it's just wild. This conditioning stuff does take some, oh my good, well, practice is what is
Yeah.
honoring all the goodness that is, and you saying, the opposites are the same thing. That's a wonderful reminder to me. Yeah.
It's all strong energy.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're so welcome. We are so grateful for your appreciation. How may we serve?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Excuse me, so happy to be with you and with everyone. I miss this, our little community.
Yes, we did too.
Um, I'm very grateful for your wisdom because things are so dense and heavy for me in the last few days, and it looks like it's going to continue until the 14th or 15th. And it's good to know that it's not personal, and I I tend to panic when things get a little unusual. So it's good to know that it's all natural and it's affecting everyone, not just me. But things are very odd. Um, I lost my appetite, which is kind of a good thing. And my my cat Ava Gardner is particularly clingy, and she's pretty aloof usually, but she's just been so clingy. And I read on uh, James Kelleher's uh, newsletter how this affects animals during this time. And he gives a particular mantra also, which I think is kind of beneficial. So thank you so much for your wisdom and all your love and support. And again, so happy you're back, and pleased you had a nice time.
Thank you so much. Well, we have one comment about the animals, and that is that animals are more sensitive than we are to some of these energies. And the eclipse is not right on top of us. You know, it's going across New York and all the way through Texas, but it's not in this part of the country. So it's not as direct as the one 6 months ago. But depending on where it hits your natal chart, it can still be extremely intense personally. And we just wait it out. But the important thing to know is, you know, as human beings, we always feel like every state that we're in is the only state we're going to experience forever. And so if it gets dark, we feel like we're trapped in the darkness for the rest of our lives. And of course, that's an illusion, because always, if we wait 15 minutes even, it's a lot different. And so it's important to recognize that change is really the fundamental aspect of our experience, more fundamental than the temporary heaviness. It's just that when things are good, we tend to assume they're always going to be good, and we forget them immediately. When things are bad, we assume they're always going to be bad, and we hold on to them, expecting them to return again soon. Actually, often we fear them returning, and in that fear, we hold them close. And we're not speaking to you specifically, we're just using what you said to riff on the theme. And you know, that's true always, that what we say here is not personal to anybody, regardless of who asked the question. We're speaking to a much broader audience that we hope will access this at some point in time. And we're so grateful to you for being here that we have some audience to speak to. And we wish the whole of humanity access to this information. Hopefully not out of arrogance, but out of wanting everyone to be connected to the highest best for the whole. Because in that fundamental axis of alignment, everything changes for the better. And you know very well that the state we hold impacts every life that our life touches. And so as we create a bigger and bigger collective dedicated to experiencing the highest best for the whole, the possibility for transformation becomes exponentially greater with each person who participates in that collective energy of dedication to the highest best for the whole. And of course, we're not the only ones talking about this.
Worth a try. Looks like
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
It's doing well today, and that's all I ask for. Um, so what's been up for both of us, but mostly me, is around memory. And a friend of ours just passed away, and his celebration of life was yesterday. And there was this beautiful montage of his life. And of course, when someone dies, we remember all the beautiful encounters and things about their lives that happened with my mom. And that's a wonderful thing. It feels like you're sending them off with good energy. Um, all the people that you hear about, everybody remembers them as the most wonderful people. And I love that because that's the way I want to remember my people. And I would love to be remembered that way. But our daughter remembers our life, her life, our family's life, and the present, in the present, as being really negative. Um, she wants so badly to clear things up, but she's coming from a place of, you did me wrong. Um, my life is not good. You seem to be describing our life together as idyllic, and that's crap. Anyway, uh, we I just realized this morning that looking back on my life and whatever I can remember, which is not, I mean, it's fragmented and everything. I remember things in a positive way. And have, if I come across a memory of something bad that happened, I look for the lesson in it. So it ultimately turns out to be a blessing. So I'm coming from more seeing my life as something good. And I would very much like to help her. She just came back into our lives after being quite distant for a while, asking for an apology, basically, um, for things that I don't remember happening the way she describes them. And I would very much like to see her move out of the dark space. But our memories don't, we're like on different planets. I'm looking at the past as either a learning experience or a positive experience or something like that. And she calls that spiritual bypassing. And
For
so,
her, go ahead, finish,
you
please.
know, you're, I'm ready to stop.
Okay. Well, for her to do that would be spiritual bypassing. For her
Yes.
to ignore her negative feelings and transmute it to positive before she actually has lived through that transmutation would
Yeah.
be a spiritual bypass. Now, you're absolutely right in that our memories of the past are faulty.
Yeah.
You know, it's like playing that game of telephone with yourself where you reinterpret everything, you
Yeah.
know, in the
Yes.
context of the experience that you want to be living from because you've decided not to participate in negativity, but to reframe everything as learning. So that to her looks like denial.
Yes.
And so you can in yourself understand that is her
Yes.
perspective. But also she's at an age where it's important that she take responsibility for her own state. And this is what you are wishing for her, is that she stop blaming you and take responsibility herself. And the very fact that she's talking spiritual bypass may mean that she is deep in her own inner work of facing her own darkness. And that is to be met with respect
Yeah.
and seriously in the Anasa temple, wishing her well. And
Yeah.
through this, and the whole issue of apology is, it's difficult from this perspective because it's hard for one to apologize for something that they don't think they ever did. And so the way around that is to say, I understand that this is what you are experiencing as you are reevaluating your life. And that's not my experience, but whatever I did that contributed to your current disharmony, I completely um, uh, I completely am taking in and working on in myself. And you do that in the Anasa temple so that you don't negate her feelings. You say, I understand that this is your experience and that you're working very hard to come through it. I apologize for whatever I don't know about that I contributed to it. And I too am doing my inner work. And hopefully we can come to some peace over time with this. So you're not absolutely denying her experience, because that will of course push her away, because then she's saying you're just lying.
Yeah.
And the truth is that none of us remembers anything, and children experiencing things in a dreamlike state for a very long part of their early life. And so taking responsibility or denying responsibility in a way is irrelevant to their experience. Her reality is that, nightmarish things happened.
Yeah.
And your reality is that that didn't happen. And from your perspective, I'm sure that that's true. And from her perspective, I'm sure that her perspective is also true, which has nothing to do with truth in the big picture. It's perception. And other people's perception, we have no control over. But we do have control over how we cultivate flow in relationship in a way that we don't compromise our dedication to love. And we don't, at the same time, we don't negate the other person's experience. Because one of the critical things in somebody recovering from what they experience as drama and trauma that you have no relationship to, but one of the really important things is to be validated by the people who love them. And so it's a complicated road to traverse.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to take responsibility for things that you don't feel responsible for. At the same time, you don't have any idea why the person's perception is what it is, and they need validation to move past it. And that's what asking for the apology is about. And so it's tricky because you don't want to make an insincere apology, but it's somehow you have to validate their reality without an insincere apology. And that involves searching in yourself for, what could have happened that gave that person the perspective they have that was unintentional on your part. Clearly, it was always unintentional.
May I say that
Yes, please.
an event just happened. Her ex-husband, our son-in-law, is a dear friend of ours. He is our son, basically. And he has been so devoted to her well-being. It's amazing. But he brought her up here to talk about an incident. Um, she was under the impression that we thought she was bad and created the divorce. That was not true. We did not see that. Everybody in our family has been divorced at least once. Not Wells and I, but we were close to it so many times. That I completely understand that people have their relationship. We don't know what's going on. So we had never made her bad. But that was a big thing because Aram, our son-in-law, came to us heartbroken, wanting support. He was open to it. She never asked for support. She assumed we thought she was the cause of the divorce and got angry with us. So she wanted an apology for that, for thinking she was bad. And we couldn't give that to her. What we said was, we never thought you were bad, and that wasn't good enough for her. She was very disappointed and went away depleted of energy. And it's kind of like clearing an apology for something that wasn't true for us is really hard. Um, I would
Do
like
you
to
know,
validate.
do
Go
you
ahead.
know why she thinks that you thought she was bad?
Yes, I do. In fact, the two of them recreated the circumstances for us, and it it's kind of personal, but they had intimacy issues, and so she went off to somebody else where he stayed wanting the relationship to work. So it looked like we were supporting him and thinking he was bad. And because Wells and I stayed together, there's an idea that you should stay together, but we're not even coming from there. But she believed that she was looked at as the person who left to go have fun, and that he was left holding the bag, and
And
that
somehow their belief of that is your fault.
well, she thought that we thought she was the instigator and the bad person in the relationship that broke it up, and that's our fault for thinking that she was bad.
Well, at least you're discussing it. This is
Well,
this is a
yeah,
big deal. This is a
yeah,
big deal that it's come to the surface. So now that it's come to the surface and you've had time to think about it, maybe you can see why she came to that conclusion, even though she made no effort to verify it. It's
right.
the lack
Well,
of
we have.
verification.
Right. I wrote her a letter saying I understand why you were disappointed that we didn't have a more of a aha moment and seemed to let you off the hook. But where we were coming from was you were never on that hook That particular hook was not from us. It was maybe looked that way, and I apologize for that. But during that meeting, she told me, don't send me any more letters.
Mm.
She only communicates through emails. She doesn't really answer her phone. I don't do emails anyway, and I find them extremely limiting. And like, you say something and then I say something, and it's not a communication. Anyway, so I'm left without being able to tell her, I understand your disappointment in our reaction.
Why is it so difficult to have face-to-face conversations? Are you in different states?
Yeah, she's in Portland, we're in Washington. That's one thing. And also, she doesn't really like that either. Aram helped facilitate that.
Well, what
We don't travel very much anymore.
would suggest is that you have them for dinner once every 3 months, no matter what. We would really say
Yeah.
6 weeks, because communication is the issue, and how you communicate is the issue.
Yeah.
And it's only going to change in face-to-face. You know, both sides are living in their own illusion and delusion.
Yes.
And so things can only begin to really shift when there's face-to-face communication.
Yeah.
So if it would be possible for you to drive down there once every 6 weeks, that would probably help to give them communication in their space.
Okay, there is a problem in that our son-in-law is remarried, and
Oh, I
his
see.
wife doesn't really love that he's so supportive of his
Exactly.
ex-wife, our daughter.
Okay. This is
And
new information.
he's he's probably the only person in the world that she really trusts. But he spends way, in my estimation, way too much energy and whatnot, trying to get her life back together.
His wife thinks so too.
Yes. And how does your daughter feel about that?
How does what?
How does your daughter feel about that?
She doesn't seem to consider her.
She's a taker.
He just said she's a taker.
Mhm.
She's very self-focused and very little, is this putting you out? Any? She doesn't ask that question.
Mm.
Really, she's in so much pain, and she's really, as far as I can see, promoted that in her life as a way.
Is she in therapy?
She's been in therapy for years, different therapies, and some of them better than others. One of them seemed to think that the root of all children's problems is their parents. And that's when it started turning
And
on us.
that's a stage, yeah. Well,
It,
what we would recommend for her, if we could, is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is giving her, real tools in the real world to rebuild her life.
yeah, Well, that's cognitive
Behavioral.
behavior. Yeah, we could not suggest that in any universe,
Yeah,
but
he might
Aram
be
might
able
be able
to.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aram might be able to.
So, and your job, as always, is in the Anasa temple.
Indeed, and that's where I spend all my time with her, basically.
That's essential, and that's probably why there's any communication at all.
Yeah. In fact, once I learned what you were talking about, how to get to the Anasa temple and what to do there. I had done that for like a week, and she showed up on our doorstep for the first time in years.
Yeah, it does work.
Yeah.
And it works profoundly. And you can suggest to her highest self that she get cognitive behavioral therapy. And you can really work much more directly on the misperceptions and shifting your own awareness to a larger space to validate her feelings of hurt and betrayal, that
Yeah.
regardless of whether you have anything to do with them, you want her to get over them. So you
Yeah.
validate them and wish her well on her journey through them. And
Yeah.
that's really all you can do,
Yes, it is.
because her feelings are her feelings, and whatever they're based in doesn't really matter. You want her to recover.
Yeah.
And so in the Inasa temple, you are clear about your use of your own energy and your dedication to the highest best for her. And
Yeah.
however that can happen is really, you'll do anything you can for it. But writing her a letter after she's told you not to will probably not help the situation,
Yeah.
regardless of what you say.
Yeah.
But going to the Inasa temple and working consistently, for her highest best, it's really the only thing to be done.
Yeah, I think so. She she has two children who are teenagers now, and one of them's in the oldest one is in real trouble.
Mm.
Suicide attempts and staying in the room and not coming out, not going to school, not doing anything. And so I don't know how she's handling that. Um, it, her the dad, Aram, is handling it very well, but I mean, as well as can be expected. And she's gotten rid of anybody who's ever wronged her, quote unquote, which is pretty much everybody at some point. Um, her support system, she's she's called them toxic and gotten rid of them. So I would like very much to be some sort of support system. And I hear what you're saying about probably the only space that I can cultivate that is at the Inasa temple. And I really appreciate the
You, Leo.
reinforcement of that.
And there's one thing you can do in the Inasa temple is you can be completely honest, and you can tell her that her perception of everyone else as toxic is actually a projection of her own state on everyone else in her
There's
life.
no one out there.
So
And she has actually put on Facebook that I'm a malignant narcissist and other horrible things.
yeah,
Um, and what you're just saying, I wouldn't ever say somebody's a malignant narcissist, but narcissism is in there somewhere,
right.
it seems to me. And, I'm willing to look at my own, um, but it's really hard to deal with someone who thinks you're what they're doing, you know, projecting what they're doing onto you.
You can tell the truth in the Inasa temple.
Yeah,
And
that's so great.
it's actually really important to do it both for you and for her, because the the highest best will support both of you.
Yeah.
And
I have refrained from
can you tell us her
thinking.
first name?
Kristen.
Okay. That's all we need to know. We can put in our 2 cents.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been 7 years in really bad state. She held the children hostage from us for their formative preteen years. And we had had a wonderful relationship with them before that. And that broke my heart more than anything. And now they're other places, they don't want to come up and visit Granny and Grampers.
Well, what I'm going to do is ask everybody on this call to add a sentence to our own meditation every day, wishing Kristen the highest best and the awareness of the highest best in whatever that way that can happen for her. And let's just see what our collective well wishes can do.
Thank you, because we need help.
Yes, this is about as difficult as it gets to have someone projecting that energy on you. And we're glad that we took the time to hear a bigger picture of what's happening here so that we can all put our energy into the highest best. This is the kind of situation that really needs our attention because there's so much darkness. And of course, that darkness touches every life it touches. And so pouring some light in there can only do good. But we can only work from the Inasa temple. There is nothing to be said or done in the outside world in this situation that will create the impact that is needed.
Thank you so much. And thank everyone on this call. That is a breakthrough for me. I've been really struggling, not struggling so much, but working every day to try to clear my space for love to enter. And it's hard to do it. He helps. He helps a lot, but no one else really knows the extent of the problem and the suffering that she's going through and that, I have to deal with in myself. So,
of course.
Thank you. Love you all.
Yes. And, this is the upside of an eclipse is that it can bring the awareness and the willingness, it can intensify a situation so much that it gets spoken. And once it's spoken to a collective like this, the energy can come in from more than one source and a big shift can happen. And so sometimes it takes this amount of intense darkness to bring something to the light. And so we can all be grateful because this is a demonstration of the positive side of this kind of intensity in our lives. Because it's brought it forward where we can, address it as a collective and something much different can happen. So let's just take the last 5 minutes of our meditation and we'll all go to the Inasa temple. We all know how to do it and wish Kristen well. And we'll just do it as a collective right now. And so we'll stop in a few minutes, but let's all just go to an Inasa temple and do that. And thank you in advance. Please tell us the names of the two boys.
The grandchildren,
Yes.
one's a girl and one's a transgender boy. Dakota is the oldest one who's having the most problems, and Calypso is the younger one who spends most of her time with her dad.
Okay. We'd like to take one more minute to all sit in gratitude for our experience together and our access to love, peace, joy, and gratitude. Thank you, Anasa, and thank you all for being here. Till next week or Wednesday night. So much love to you all. Bye for now.